fun. I didn't mess those up too badly. Okay. My message this morning is you are not a ham sandwich. And I remember that I used this, a title similar to this. It was, If God is Love, You Are Not a Ham Sandwich. Oh, years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, in a message. But I'm going to go ahead and give credit for the title of my message this morning, You're Not a Ham Sandwich, to a friend of mine. And I'm going to call her Mary to keep her confidence. Well, Mary gave me a call, and she was so excited that she could hardly tell me what happened, okay? But she said that she'd won 2 tickets to the Salina Community Theater's Disney production of, what was The Little Mermaid? Yeah. And I love their musicals. She announced to me, though, that she was going to give the tickets away to a co-worker of hers, a single mom with a young daughter to care for. And she just felt that this person could use some upliftment as she was struggling financially. I applauded my friend for wanting to share her blessings with someone else. But then she said something that kind of set me back. She said it was strange to win those tickets because I never win anything. Well, I said, see, this is just an example of God's love for you. This gift of the tickets is meant to let you know that you're worthy of all the blessings in your life. And she surprised me by saying, BJ, I can't believe that because, I don't know, I just think that I can jinx that. That whole idea of being worthy concerns me. Well, without thinking, I quickly responded, oh, stop being a ham sandwich. Now, I know. And after our laughter died down, I decided I'd tell her what that meant, where that expression came from. Now, the use of ham sandwich as a description for a person actually comes from my childhood, growing up in Jersey. Mom and Dad and my sisters. Mom had definite ideas about ruling the roost when we girls grew up. We girls could not fight among ourselves. Heck, we couldn't even push each other in anger. And there was no name calling. My mother also gave us the rule that there was to be no cussing and no profanity. We could not write on the walls with our crayons, and I remember my twin and I, very young, washing the kitchen wall because we had drawn on it with our crayons, okay? I know, double trouble. Anyway, I remember that. And Mom wouldn't allow us to chew bubble gum. Well, every kid was chewing bubble gum, but she thought that the bubble gum might pull our fillings out, our teeth fillings out. Well, she was wrong. I still have 2 back teeth which are working fine, and they have the old silver fillings still in them. Now that went back when I was 13 or 14 years old, okay, those fillings. But there was a complication with one of Mom's rules for the household. When Dad would get angry, upset, or feel discouraged or disappointed about something, he would exclaim, "Oh, damn!" And there came a time when our mother just had to say something to him about this. So after one of Dad's expressions of, "Oh, damn," she was concerned about the effect that might have on us. And Mom told him, "You are not going to use that word here in this house anymore with my girls around." And in his defense, Dad said, "Doris, damn is in the Bible." And her response was, "I don't care if it's in the Bible. You are not going to use that kind of language here around the girls." Now, because Dad continued to protest, Mom decided to give him 2 days of silent treatment to be sure that he knew she meant business. And so Dad, he used those 2 days productively and apparently came up with a solution. After the period of silence had ended, Whenever Dad felt frustrated, disappointed, or angry about something, he said, "Oh, ham sandwich." See? Okay. So when I was talking with my friend Mary, it just kind of slipped out of my mouth unbidden from my subconscious level of mind, which holds our memories. I mean, no offense to people who love ham sandwiches. In fact, my dad enjoyed ham sandwiches. But Dad only had 2 days to come up with something to use instead of, "oh, damn." And this seemed to work fine with Mom. And so, that's what he said. That's what we heard. So as I was using it, and as I'm going to be using it this morning, the expression ham sandwich doesn't refer to the food that you eat. It refers to the feeling of frustration or disappointment or feeling of anger. Okay, that could be about a situation that occurs. It could be about the behavior of another person or something that happened. Okay, so I offer this expression to you if you find it helpful in your household. While expressing from our human level of self, we're bound to have times when we think, feel, and say and do things that bring feelings of frustration or disappointment in life. Perhaps we are frustrating and disappointing others. Maybe we are frustrating and disappointing ourselves when we are expressing less than the highest and best that we know we are capable of. But what I was trying to say to Mary was, stop damming up the flow of God's good in your life by thinking and by feeling that you're not worthy to receive God's blessings. Perhaps you do feel frustrated and disappointed in yourself this morning because of something that you thought, you said, you did, or something that you omitted to say or do. And you feel pretty much like a lowlife. This would be your experience of a ham sandwich consciousness. So what I was saying then to Mary and what I'm sharing with you this morning is that being blessed by God is not a conditional thing. We are ever unconditionally loved by that force, that energy which created us. Blocking the good that we seek to experience in life is not a function of what God does in our life. It's what we do to ourselves in life when we don't recognize the divinity within us. And instead, we identify as the human ego self by either consciously or unconsciously using the law of mind action negatively. Now, the law of mind action unity states that whatever we're holding in our mind will produce of its kind in our life experience. And that applies to good things that we're holding in mind about ourselves, about others, about life, and being open to blessings. But it also can mean that the negative things that we are holding in our mind will perpetuate, in our life experience. So this is something that we need to be aware of so that we can consciously use the law of mind action only for those things that we desire to see and experience in our lives. Blocking the good that we seek to experience in life is an experience of limitation for us. It's an experience of, frustration. Because divine love is ever flowing into us and through us in our life situations. We affirm that very thing here, that divine love through us blesses and multiplies us and everything about us, all the good. So divine love is flowing in every situation, even the ones we classify and describe as negative. But because it's always flowing, and this divine love is an expression of God, we don't have to earn it. God can't help loving and blessing its creation. And according to the Bible, everything that God created, He declared good, right from the very start, from the beginning. In Genesis, after God created humankind, God declared us and all creation to be good. That doesn't mean we don't do bad stuff. Our essence, though, is good. Humanly, we make decisions about how we're going to think, feel, act, how we're going to show up in our world, how we're going to treat other people in our world. These are very human experiences on one level. But they are also decisions and choices that we are making on a spiritual level as well. All the bad stuff that we or others think, say, and do provides us with hard lessons to learn about who we are, about how to relate to others, our planet, and our world. When Jesus said to all of us in Luke 12:32, "It is God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom," he meant that God, that one presence and power in which we live, move, and have our being, is never holding out on us. Is never holding good back from us. Again, we do this to ourselves. God never said, Jesus never said that God had requirements or certain conditions for us to experience divine love. He said that we ourselves require certain conditions, like seeking the kingdom first, like knocking on the door of our good, like forgiving 70 times 7, like loving our neighbor as we love ourselves. We require those kinds of conditions for us to be willing to open ourselves to God's good. For us to feel that we are worthy of God's good, even though we always are. We don't always feel worthy of God's good. In fact, depending on what we've done in the day or done in the past, we could hold ourselves for a very long time in this state of unworthiness or I'm not enough consciousness. But it's not God holding us there, it's us. We ourselves hold ourselves there based on our consciousness, what we think, what we feel, what we believe, our attitude, and what we do, how we express. We teach our world. Remember, this world was created to be very responsive to us, human beings. Very responsive to our life, to our thought energy. And so, when we are thinking negatively, putting ourselves down, belittling ourselves, having that ham sandwich consciousness, we are teaching our world how to treat us. The world takes its cue from us. I can just imagine that, okay, I make a mistake and I jump all over myself, okay, about it. And the universe says, oh my, okay, BJ has a problem here, okay? So the world asks, well, what should I do? She's generating negative energy, so maybe that's what she wants. Maybe that's what I'll give her more of. You think? It's possible. Everything in this universe, Charles Fillmore said, and Myrtle too, is filled with intelligence. In fact, I think that was Myrtle who spoke of that because she was speaking about her physical condition when she realized that she could be healed. Everything, she said, in the universe is filled with God's intelligence, and we can communicate with it. Well, we can communicate, and we do communicate with our world. All of the thoughts we think put out generate energy. We are energy-making factories, okay? And if the energy that we put out is negative, as per the law of mind action, and it is also the law of giving and receiving, it is the law of causation. What goes out comes back. And all of those laws mean that energy that we put out is going to return to us. So, if we become conscious of this, if we begin to work with this, we will begin to stop putting out that negative ego energy and instead turn to that higher place within us and project those divine qualities that God has placed within us. The truth that sets us free to experience the blessings of life, is to know that only we ourselves create the blocks, or I should say participate in the building of experiences which seem to block our good, which seem to close the doors of our mind, which then holds up our ability to receive God's blessings, which are freely and always given to us. We do this mainly by holding an image of who we think we are, having a ham sandwich identity, or having a divine expression of God identity. As we believe here in Unity, we are spiritual beings, and we are creations or expressions of the only presence and power there is in the world, which is good. We call this God. We are endowed with the creative qualities of our divine parent. You know, Charles Fillmore codified 12 spiritual faculties, and there may be well more than this, but the major 12 that he gave spell out the sentence, lip juice flows. That's L-I-P, Juice, J-U-Z-E, flows, F-L-O-W-S. Okay, that stands for life, imagination, power. Juice, judgment, understanding. Zeal, or enthusiasm. And elimination, flows, F-L-O-W-S. Faith and love and order and wisdom and strength, 12. Unity teaches that it is our consciousness that is what we do with our mind, with our thoughts, our feelings, attitudes and beliefs, and then our actions in life, which opens the door of our good, or sets up the blocks, as I said before, in our mind. These blocks do not exist in God. They exist in us because of what we are doing with our creative ability. It's kind of like experience I had some years ago when I went with a friend to New Mexico, and we went to Carlsbad Caverns. That was a fascinating place. You know, that's the one, when they advertise it, they usually show all these bats flying out of the cave in the morning. Well, when we were there, most of the bats had already gone. Now, there were still a few bats in the areas where we walked through the cavern that were up in the ceiling, and you know, that was kind of creepy feeling to know that they were up there watching us going by. But no one got hurt. None of them came down and became Dracula with the wings, you know. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Anyway, Mary, my friend, may have hit on something, hit on a truth herself. Because although we can't be God's giving, and God's giving, that gift is ever given to us. And God doesn't block that gift from flowing into our life, but we do. She said she was afraid that she could jinx that gift. And you know, I think that she was right, because as per the law of mind action, we can choose to hold negative, limiting, life-denying thoughts, and these will jinx not jinx God, but jinx our own ability to open ourselves to God's good. See, there's a difference there. So in this cave, the most amazing thing was when they turned the lights out. They turned all the lights out. Now, we were warned. The guide said that they were going to do that. So they turned all the lights out, and my gosh, I thought I knew what darkness was. You know, you enter a room when the light is off, but that's nothing compared to the darkness that I experienced in the cavern here when all the lights were turned off. That was so dark that you couldn't see anyone or anything around you. In fact, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. That dark. Have you ever experienced darkness like that? Well, I think that we experience something akin to that when we identify with our human ego self and we get caught up in negative stuff and we get caught up in behavior that is hurtful and harmful to us and others. And what we're doing is we're placing ourselves in that box like a Carlsbad cavern, okay? And we're turning off all the lights. So even if the good was staring us in the face, we wouldn't see it. That doesn't mean it's not there. God's gifts, Jesus said, are always given to us. It's the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, okay? So that means it's there, but we just can't see it, can't feel it, can't experience it because of the choices that we are making. But it was a great experience. It was fun to see the multicolored stalactites and stalagmites. Some of them were hanging from the ceiling and the others were mounds that were building up from the floor of the cavern. But beautiful. When we combine and equate our I am identity with the human ego self, which caters to the voice of the world and judges us as unworthy, as not enough, as incapable, and as disappointments to those we love, we are closing the doors to our good. If we take those statements and begin affirming them as though they were the truth of us, they may be what we are doing temporarily, but we always have choice. We can always become aware of what we're doing with our thoughts, words, and actions, and make different responses, have different responses. You know, when we take on the negative energy and things from others, we can not only identify with them and forget about the truth of our divine nature, but we can get so that we don't even recognize our own face anymore. It's kind of like you look in the mirror and say, well, who are you? Do you know what you did? Okay, what you said? One Saturday morning, a wife woke up and she decided to check her phone messages before she got out of bed. After a few minutes of tapping the phone screen, she cursed loud enough to wake her husband, and she jumped out of bed and hurried into the bathroom. Worried and wondering what had happened, her husband got out of bed and he followed her into the bathroom, only to find her frantically putting on her makeup. "What's the hurry?" he asked her. "You just woke up and you're not going into work today. It's Saturday, so why are you putting on your makeup?" She replied, "I've locked my phone with facial recognition, and apparently it's not recognizing me without my makeup." Well, we may not recognize ourselves either when we choose to identify with the human ego self. I really like what Father Richard Rohr, a Franciscan monk, teacher and author, lecturer, wrote about finding our real identity, which is our true face, in an article that he wrote for the Center of Action and Contemplation in New Mexico, which he founded. The article is called "What the Mystics Know," and it was dated October of 2020. Rohr wrote, "I'm not sure that most people in the West world have ever really met the person who they themselves really are." He wrote, "Most of us have lived our lives with a steady stream of ideas, images, and feelings that we cling to, thinking that they are our very essence. But in reality, at that level, we don't have the idea. The idea has us. We don't have the feeling has us. We have to discover, he said, who this I really is. Who are we at the deepest level behind our thoughts and feelings, or others' thoughts and feelings about us? At every moment, all our life long, we identify ourselves either with our thoughts, our self-image, or our feelings. We have to find a way, he wrote, beyond those things to discover our original face, the one we already had before we were born. There's a story about a man who goes in search of something more in life. And when you and I begin to experience lack and limitation, we become seekers as well. That happened with the prodigal son, and the Bible tells us that one day, as the son came to be in want, that he came to himself. And that is that turning around, that coming to that highest within us. So in this story, there's a drunk who stumbles across a baptismal service one Sunday, and he tumbles himself right down into the water where the preacher is standing doing the baptisms. The preacher, surprised but undaunted, turns and sees the man. And he says, "Oh, hi, mister. Are you here to find Jesus?" And the inebriated man says, "Yes, I am, pastor. I'm here to find Jesus." Yeah. So anyway, the pastor dunks him in the water, and then he pulls him up and he asks him, "So have you found Jesus?" And the drunk tells him, "No, I haven't found him yet." So the preacher dunks him again and makes him stay a little longer under the water this time. And then he pulls him up, and the preacher says, "Okay, now, brother, have you found Jesus?" And "Not yet," says the drunk man. So by now, the preacher is feeling a bit frustrated and disappointed, maybe feeling like a ham sandwich himself, because in front of that whole congregation, he seems to be failing to help this man find Jesus. So this time, in frustration, the preacher dunks the man down, and he holds him for a count of 20 seconds. Seems like a long time. Anyway, he hauls the man up and holds on to him while he spits and sputters water. And the drunk, he wipes his eyes and he looks directly at the preacher. He looks the preacher in the eye. And he asks, "Well, are you sure this is where he fell in?" Looking for God is good. It's the start of the search. It starts with that. And spiritually, we can say that God is in the deep water within us, meaning that the very presence of God is in the depth of our being. And we must dive deeply into the waters of self to truly grasp our true identity as a child expression or outpressing of God. Here at Unity, we call that the Christ within us. Here's a little advice. Be patient with those around you when you are working on changing your self-identity and changing from identifying with your ego self to identifying with your divine higher self. You are not a ham sandwich. You are the light of the world, Jesus said. But it can blow some people away when you realize this truth and when you decide to begin expressing this light in your world. A man was falling out of love with his wife, and so he went to see a counselor about it. It seems that every day this man would leave for work, he'd put in a hard day, and he'd come home dirty and sweaty, and he'd stumble in through the back door, go to the refrigerator to get something cold to drink, and then he'd go to the living room to sit and watch TV until supper time. Well, after receiving some suggestions about changing these facts, the man decided to do things differently. The next day, he showered and shaved, put on clean clothes, and he went off to work. Before leaving the job, however, he showered again, and on the way home, he stopped at a florist, and he bought a bouquet of roses. And When he got home, instead of going around the back and through the back door as usual, he went to the front door and he rang the doorbell. His wife opened the door. She took one look at him and she began crying. When he asked her what was wrong, she said, "It's been a horrible day. First, Billy broke his leg and had to have it put in a cast. No sooner had I returned home from the hospital when your mother called to say she's coming to stay 3 weeks. I tried to do the wash, but the washing machine broke and there's water all over the basement. And now you have to come home drunk." God bless you.